This episode is brought to you by Lindus Group of Companies. Why go anyplace else?
They put their heart and soul into the game with a vision of winning for themselves and their country. They put in countless hours perfecting their skills while making so that they will taste victory. These are our athletes, and now it's time to meet them up close.
Well, hello and welcome to another edition of Up Close with yours truly, Colin Thompson. The first one kicking off 2025, and gives me great pleasure to introduce our guest today, Mr. Dennis Brown, another one of our football legends. Certainly a pleasure to have you on board today, Mr. Brown.
Yes, good afternoon, Colin. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure being here, and looking forward to it.
But you just got here, man. Relax. We haven't even started yet.
Anyway, really good. We got a long afternoon today.
Now we're going to jump right into it, Dennis. When you reflect on your career, you've certainly been blessed, had an extraordinary career as a player, first and foremost, and even had success as a coach, and even you're still heavily involved in football. But I'm going to pick it up, reflecting on your career. When you look back, what stands out the most for you?
Well, I would say, and again, thank you for having me. I would say there were a lot of moments in my playing career, and a lot of people may not know I was blessed in 3 sports: football, cricket, which I was better in cricket than I was in football, and I was better in track and field than I was in both of those two. It all started for me, and you will love this because born on Hog Bay level in Sands Parish. Lived most of my time at White Hill. Lived a lot in Somerset. And it all started for me really in football at Manchester Street. That neighborhood, it was a close-knit neighborhood in Manchester Street. I was neighbors with guys like Anthony Bailey, Kevin Bailey, the Wellers, George Weller. George Weller really was the one to take me under his wing when I was a young boy, toughen me up. I'll never forget those days in Manchester Street playing in the little alley. Football season, we're playing football. Cricket season, we're playing cricket. And then the track and field piece also took over. But football-wise, it started from West End School, Mr. Lionel Turner. At 9 years old, I was invited. At that time, we only had bantams and juniors on the 14s and on the 18s. And at 9 years old at West End Primary School, Mr. Turner invited me to come to train for Somerset Bantams on the 14s. And I was successful in making the squad, and that's where it all began for me. And to me, looking back, that's where my leadership started, because I was playing with guys a lot older than me. And by the time I got to the age of like 12 years old, I became the captain of Somerset on the 14s, and so on. And looking back, I was captain of all the teams that I played for. West End, went to Warwick Sack, Somerset Bantams, Somerset Juniors, and so on, the national teams. So that's where it all started for me, from 9 years old all the way up. By the time I got to 14, I was invited to train with the senior team. And then I was also playing bantams and juniors. So Somerset identified that I possibly had a little bit of talent. And that's where it really began. I was invited by Randy Horton and Rudy Miners to train the senior team once a week when I was 14. Excuse me. And the rest is history. By the time I went 16, I was put right in. Keith Simmons got an injury. And I was drafted right into the first team that year. And by that Christmas, I was invited to the national team to travel to Mexico. I'll never forget Andrew Bascom, myself, Kevin Deal, and Kevin Grant were the 16-year-olds. I was the youngest out of all of us, to travel to Mexico with the national team. Guys like Mark Bassett, Gumbo Bean, Lance Braun, Bully Beef, Lorenzo Simons, who is probably one of the most influential players in my playing career. Once I got into the national team, he took me under his wing, and I still call him Boss right up to today because he was very instrumental in my development, not just in the national team, but also playing for Somerset.
Right. Now, then you started out, obviously, you went to carve out a name for yourself as a defender. Were you always a defender?
Yes, I was always a defender right from primary school, center back. Did a little midfield now and then in the bantams, but my main position that I really took to was playing as a center back.
And who were some of the other older players, teammates that were around you in that first Somerset team? What is it, under 14 team?
The under 14, so that was guys like Stevie Raleigh, who was a big influence on me coming through. Call him Glurb. Anthony Simons, who underperformed in my opinion. Should have been a lot further than what he did. Michael Cadet, who was a couple of years older than me, but we played in the same Bantam team and stuff like that. Anthony Bailey, Kevin Bailey, Kelly Simmons. We had so much talent going through those teams at that time. It's a shame.
And then when you got elevated to the senior squad, you were invited to train at 14. I mean, he's a grown man. You're 14.
Yeah.
Was that an intimidating experience for a youngster?
Not
like
really,
yourself?
because once I got there, physically I was a big boy at 14, so I was able to hold my own. Once I saw that I could hold my own with the senior players at that age, I knew by the time I went 16, I'll be ready to get in. So say, so done. Gordon called me one day to say, "Hey, you're starting today." I said, "I'm starting?" I said, "Yeah, you're starting today." And that was against Devonshire Cougars at Somerset, playing against Danny Rogers up front. Danny Rogers, very good striker, movement off the ball. At that time, they had sweepers and markers, so I had to mark. Larry Simmons was the sweeper at that time, and it was a good baptism. I remember we won 3-1. I thought I had a good game, and so one of the things I said was that Keith's injured, and when I get in that team, I'm not coming out of the team, and that was it. Once I got in, I never got replaced until I was injured.
Wow. So, and were you at Warwick Sec at the time? I know you went to Warwick.
Sec.
So your coach was also your principal.
Two sides of the coin. I can't say what he used to say in the changing room.
So you had to keep your grades up.
Oh my God. And I remember this, one Monday, I didn't go to school after a game on the Sunday. So Mr. Horton called my house and told me, "You better get yourself to school." But this day, I had 2 black eyes I was playing against Eddie Simpson. So when we used to go off at Hatters, he used to do that. And I was legitimately sick this day because I had 2 black eyes. Once Horton saw it, he sent me right back in. But yeah, Mr. Horton, one of the most important things for him was education. So don't mess around with the education. If you're not paying attention in school, you're not playing football. So I'm very, very, very thankful for that.
And Eddie Simpson, of course, was Hotels.
Eddie Simpson played for Hotels. You have very
physical team.
You had to grow up quickly against these guys. I'll never forget, again, we played against Hotels. Cousin Lance, somebody must have kicked me, and Lance came up in my face. "If you don't bleep, 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 kick him back, I'm going to bleep, 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 whatever to you." Right? So at the end of the day, you had to grow up quickly. I was a boy playing against men, and I had to grow up real quick. I'll never change anything about my development coming through with Somerset forever.
It's interesting you say Manchester Street, because having lived in Somerset myself at one point, I remember that name, and it, as a fan of football, Manchester United, Manchester City. So I always thought it was, very special that people that lived in that area, their street was named
That's special.
and they're probably like you, Liverpool fans.
Yep, I'm a United fan, Manchester United. So that was my foundation. That I was the small boy playing against the big boys, all the time. So that allowed me and enabled me to toughen up. They used to knock you down, get up, you know what I mean, stuff like that. So that toughened me up. And I will forever be grateful for living in that neighborhood for the time that I lived in. The Vallas, we were close together. Marshall Vallas, the magician, him and his family, the Gums, used to call him Ersey. Ersey was a big guy down White Hill. He was an Eagles fan over there. He was a Somerset boy. The Bailiffs, like I said, Gary Bremer, Friday Bremer, that family, the Tuckers, Sharkey and all that. So there was a nice, tight-knit neighborhood. And, you know what I mean? We did a lot of things. Like I say, a football season, we're playing football, cricket season, we're playing cricket, and so on. So it was a pleasure to be associated with that neighborhood. Also, Heathcote Hill, that's another part of my development. Songview Road, Conrad Lister, David Burchell, Anthony Burchell, so Alfred Mary. So we all came up around that area as well once when I lived on Balls Valley.
And you mentioned Keith. Anyone else who were some of the other players in that senior squad you went?
I first started. My first bantam coach, Jermaine Tricks Richardson. It was a pleasure for me to play with Tricks. So at that time, Rudy Miners was still playing. Horton was still playing. George Raymond, probably the biggest influence on me in Somerset at that time was George Raymond. Bernard Derlin, Bum LaBelle, like I said, Stevie Riley. There were so many. Lance Braun, who definitely was my mentor. There were so many guys to give me encouragement, bring me through, criticize me when I needed criticism, correct me when I needed correcting, and stuff like that. So it was like a smooth transition for me going from the junior ranks to the senior ranks.
So you were playing senior ball for Somerset before you were old enough to go on the other side, in the bar. You got to get your drinks from the window.
Exactly. I couldn't go in the bar. Yeah. That's even when I was, for the first team. So, it's looking back, like it's amazing, the amount of accomplishments that I did in football. From being at 17, I was the runner-up for Young Player of the Year to Andrew. At 18, I won the Young Player of the Year. At 19, also at 18, Mr. Horton trusted me to be the captain of Somerset's senior team at 18. At 19, I won the MVP award for Bermuda senior. At 23, I won the MVP again. That was the first person to do that before they were 23 years old. And then from trials at Luton Town in 1981, we were supposed to be there for 2 weeks. I ended up staying for a few months. I was that close, but then a crazy knee injury occurred, and then David Pleat at that time was the manager of Luton, and he wanted to invite me back, but I guess things didn't materialize and it didn't happen. But that showed me what it took to be a professional football player. And I brought that work ethic back to Bermuda, to Somerset. Actually won the league 3 years in a row undefeated. So I put a lot of challenges towards myself and also a lot of challenges towards my teammates. I'm not going to let you slacken up in training. So hey, at the end of the day, we put a lot of demands on each other. And I don't regret anything that happened in my football career right up until today.
Looking back at that era, I mean, the grounds were standing room only,
Oh my goodness.
packed. What was it like as a young player going into that theater, you know?
I still talk about that right up to today. Every week I'm talking about, a bunch of us get together, or if we see each other, old football opponents, we always talk about back in the day. And the crowds, like you said, were like 4, 5 deep, 3, 4,000 every game, no matter who you're playing against. And, I just like to perform in that type of arena. So I was never nervous or anything like that. I used to look forward to representing Somerset because that was my ultimate goal when I was growing up in Somerset, to represent Somerset Trojans. And I did that. I think I did that to the best of my ability and at a good level.
Certainly did. And, there's standing room only, such a buzz around the game. I remember, everyone would go to the TV on the Sundays or when the Mondays when Sports Spectacular used to come on and look at the highlight reels. Certainly, a lot of coverage back there. Football was really, really, at a high standard, high level, and drew those crowds. And don't talk about up the National Stadium.
And the crowd,
The carpet was like always such a colorful, a spectacle in itself on Cup final day.
the crowds were incredible, man. Just looking back and looking at, like you said, the quality. Every team to me had at least 7 to 8 quality players. When I say quality, I mean quality players. Somerset had umpteen quality players. Rangers, PHC, like Rangers, you had Woodgate, Dilly Dick, Kenny Burt, Mike Byron, Randy Darrow, Stevie Tucker. You go to PHC, you got playing against Kenny Burt, playing against Kevin Deal, who was my old classmate. Kevin Deal, Sammy Swan, Frank Mean, Mike Deal. Go to Devonshire Coast, my hero Lorenzo Simons in Eddie Santa Beck, Jeff Richardson, Cougars, Dago Steed, Danny Rogers, Bigger Richardson, and so on. St. George's, you had the Stevie Dickinsons and the St. George's guys. Every team had quality. So you knew that you couldn't come to a game unprepared. You had to, number one, be fit, right? You had to be fit in those days to make sure that you stand up to, man, like I said, I was a boy playing against men, Mop Asswoods and these guys, Pinks Lewis and Cecil Robinsons and guys like that. So we knew, and I knew from George Brinkman's teachings, that you need to make sure that you're mentally and physically prepared to stand up to playing against Hotel, Andrew Caldwell's and Eddie Simpson's, and unbelievable. Like the physicality at that time was unbelievable playing in the first division.
And who would be your toughest opponent? You're right.
I would say looking back, even from primary school days, so this came from primary school, Kenny Burt was definitely my most difficult opponent. I never said that when I played, but Kenny Burt was a wizard to me. Like he was probably one of the best. Between him, like best movers off the ball. Like he'll go missing for a little while. You forget it's there, and then he'll appear. Like he reminded me so much of Stevie Riley, because Stevie Riley was just like that. Go missing, and then he'll appear, make a blindside run, and is the end to score. So I would say at that time, Kenny Burt was definitely my most difficult opponent.
That's why perhaps that's why they gave him the nickname Ninja.
Ninja
Stove.
And then just looking back, I remember one year Ward Sack were in place to win 3 trophies, juniors, intermediates, and seniors. So we were playing Whitney this year in the intermediate final at BA, and we were undefeated right up until meeting Whitney and Kenny Brett. I think he scored 2 goals. They beat us 3-1 or something like that in the finals. So yeah, he was always a thorn. Always had to pay attention to Kenny Brett. Always had to pay attention.
And then as a team, which were the teams that were toughest for Somerset back in that day?
PHC.
PAC.
In the 80s. Like if you look at the records, that was between PHC and Hotels. Hotels were, I mean, playing against Ricky Hill was no easy day either. You know what I mean? To me, he's one of the best strikers that I played against in Bermuda. He was physical, but he could also play. He was good on the floor, and everybody knows about his exploits, calling them helicopter Hill. So playing against Hotels was very, a daunting task a lot of the times. But yeah, you had to be ready and prepared, like I said.
So you mentioned the three league title successive, 3 on the trot, the hat trick. Undefeated. Can't forget that. Undefeated.
Yeah.
I know Social Club did it once. I don't know. I can't remember how many years. Was it 3 or?
I think Social Club did
undefeated?
it 3 years, and that was one of our goals. Like so the first year we used to challenge each other. So the first year we went undefeated. So we said, like, hey, we worked hard together. Let's work harder to stay there. So the next year we worked harder to stay there. So it's 2 years in a row. And then the third year in a row, that's an amazing achievement. I don't think that's been done ever since. You know what I mean? And that's something that we can be proud of in Somerset, to know that at one time we were undefeated in the league for 3 years in a row.
Obviously, you come into a Somerset team, one of the most successful teams in domestic football in terms of titles, whatnot. Expectations are high, through the roof. You're coming in and you've got to carry the baton. Like, how did you, what was that challenge like? Psychologically, like, was there something on your mind, something that you had that drove you guys?
One of the things we used to challenge each other in training. The training sessions were intense, so we took that intensity right into the games on the weekends. It was never a moment where we're relaxing in training. It was always intense. So we always had big numbers. And I tell the youngsters of today, our sessions were like 11v11, plus you had guys on the side waiting to come in. And at one time, I remember in the first division, Trojans, the senior team was leading the first division. And we also had a team in the second division that was also leading in the second division. So that tells you the quality that we had at that time. And I think the winners of that, Somerset having so many players, was Somerset Eagles, because a lot of guys couldn't make Somerset. That's when a lot of them went down to Eagles. Guys like Slugger and these guys, they went down to Eagles to play for Somerset Eagles to strengthen them. So we always put demands on each other. Me as a captain, always put demands on my players. I wouldn't tell you to do something that I wouldn't do. So at the end of the day, it was a very competitive environment.
And you guys, most of you grew up in that community together and went to school together, correct?
Yeah, a lot of us went.
Sort of like help with the chemistry.
A lot of us went West End Primary. A lot of us went Warwick Sack, believe it or not. Some of the guys went to Sands, but we were always a close-knit group, especially from my Bantam team, because a lot of us went into the first division team. Like, I think before me was Troy Berkeley, Michael Cadet, and Anthony Bailey from my Bantam team. And then I followed, and the rest is history. But we've always had a good chemistry, respectful relationships. I mean, we're even still tight right up until today. You know what I mean? So we had those relationships from 1976 when Somerset sent our Bantam team to a tournament in Mississauga, Canada. And the rest is history. That gave us an opportunity to see players from other countries, and this is important for the development of football in Bermuda. because we were undefeated at that time in the Bantams for 3 years. So Tricks wanted to test us somewhere else. And our first game, we played against a team from Sweden in the tournament. We lost 7-1. So that taught us that, hey, we needed to step up our game. And I think we lost one more game after that. But outside of that, the development of football players in Bermuda, and some said how they developed us, was at that time second to none.
So you mentioned the 3 league titles. Any other cups you won? I know you won the.
Yeah, I won.
You captained the last team to win the FA last summer.
Won everything. The only thing I didn't win as a captain was the Dudley League. We got to like 5, 6, or 7 Dudley League finals. That's when you had the 2 legs, and end up coming on the losing side. But that shows you that Somerset were always in the top 4 at Christmas. I won the Mortimer a couple of times, Friendship a few times. At Dudley, didn't win that until like my later years when Muscles was the coach, but I really wasn't playing that much. Was the first football player to win the Sportsman of the Year with Jennifer, a distance run. I can't remember her name. Fisher. Right. She won the seniors. I was the first footballer to win the Sportsman of the Year. And one of the biggest highlights of my career was being involved with the national team under Gary Darrell. Although at that time I was on my way out of football, washed up, I would say. I was about 28, but that was a good run for that national team. And I've no regrets. My only regret is, not being a professional football player, but I wasn't a professional in one sense, but I always thought I had that professional mentality to bring it to the table every single time.
You mentioned about the national squad. I believe that was 92? Was it 92?
91,
World Cup
92,
qualifying,
World
I
Cup
believe.
qualifiers.
Mr. Darrell's team went the furthest.
Yes.
World Cup qualifiers than Bermuda's ever been before.
Yes.
So
that was a good experience.
You set the bar.
Even, and I would tell guys all before that, I was a player, I was a starter. So now my real changes now, because you had a young Sean Smith coming through, you had Roy coming through. So the easy thing for me to do could have been to sulk and whatever, but no, my mentality was to encourage these guys and be ready to come in when needed. And we ran ahead against El Salvador. Kyle Lipon scored a brilliant header. Once we scored that goal, Gary said, "Come, get up and warm up. Come on, to make sure you bring us in 1-0." So said, so done. The biggest game for me in that, the next round was when we went to play against Haiti. We actually beat Haiti here in Bermuda 1-0. And I didn't start again. I came on again, closed up the shop. Then we went to Haiti. That was probably one of the hardest games I ever played as a national team player. Sean Gerda scored in the first couple of minutes to put us out 1-0. And I think Haiti scored close to after we scored, and then Sean got injured, like in the first 15 minutes or something, and came on again. We defended with our lives and ended up getting out of Haiti 1-1, and then we went progress to the later stages where we I thought we did well as well, but at the end of the day, those were some good experiences, for me as a football player representing Bermuda.
And you also captain Bermuda. Bermuda sounds about your country.
Captain my country. Well, started from the under-17 national team under Coach Trott. I was captain of that team that had some talent in that team. Porky Manders, God bless his soul, the 2 goalkeepers are gone, Porky Manders and Gurmsey. Then you had Kevin Grant, Glib was also in that team, Robert Goodchild, Andrew Bascom, Kenny Brett, Buller Anderson, George Smith from Boulevard, Kenny Burt, Troy Barkley, God bless his soul, Anthony Bailey, Michael Cadet. We had a tremendous squad. We actually got to the knockout stages. We actually won our division in St. Louis. Went to DC to play at I think it was RFK Stadium against USA. The winner out of that game would have went through to the semifinals to go to the World Cup. We ended up losing 2-1 against USA. Scores 1-1 for a long time, and then they scored a disputed offside goal, but that was a very talented youth squad that I was captain of. Also captain the under-23s. We had an under-23 group that went to Colorado Springs. And I was like 19, captain in the under-23s. So I've had a good career, all being a captain. And yeah, it's looking back, I see that I've done a lot in football in Bermuda.
I'm not sure. Are you the first to do that, captain club and country, or many?
No, I think George Brangman did that.
Okay.
George Brangman was captain of Somerset, and he captained Bermuda. Lorenzo was the same way, captain Devonshire Colts and captained Bermuda. So yeah.
Certainly in a good group of company there.
Yeah. Lorenzo taught me so much playing with him at center back for the Bermuda national team. And one thing I would say is that when I first got into the national team, I was playing at right back. I didn't play that. I couldn't displace Lorenzo and Wooly. So coach asked me, "Do you mind playing right back?" I said, "Sure, as long as I'm playing." You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, you do your best wherever the coach puts you.
He certainly had the pace.
Yeah, definitely had pace. No guys like you could overcome me. I was pretty packed. That's where my track and field thing came in, because I was more than 100, 200 at long jump. Right? So at 11 years old, like I told you, I jumped 18 feet in long jump at 11, which was the second best in the world at that time. So my biggest regret is not pursuing track and field, because if you look at 11 jumping 18 feet, imagine if I was like 17, 18, 19, 20, what could have happened with the training? Also, like I said, I was better in cricket. I was playing Premier Division with Randy Horton and Hines and Reed and these guys at 12 years old, batting number 3. Right? So at the end of the day, like, and me and Kenny, we talk about it all the time, that, Kenny always says, man, you should have been captain for cup match. But at the end of the day, football was my first love, and I'll never regret it.
And that 3.
Batting at number 3, without helmets, facing guys like Adrian King on concrete up East Field. I'll never forget stuff like that. You know what I mean? But yeah, batting number 3. Yeah.
Yeah. On concrete.
On concrete.
He was doing 100 plus.
Oh my goodness. I'll never forget a game against Police up there. We lost an early wicket. So Horton said, "Yeah, go out there, stay there, support Reed." Yeah, I did my job. Stayed there for about an hour, but at the end I made 12. But yeah, I did my job. You know what I mean? But yeah, cricket was. I used to love cricket too, but football was my first love, definitely.
You used to bowl as well? Did you bowl?
A little bit, but I was more of a batsman.
I mean, you said you was a cricketer. I thought you might have been a bowler.
No, it's more of a
I thought you might have been pushing off the side screen.
Patient left-handed batsman.
Yeah.
That was me.
All right. And track and field. Did you ever do Karifka? You got that up?
No. So by the time I went 12, because Mr. Long put me under Glen Lakes. Glen Lake used to train me, so I used to go up to the stadium for extra training. Glen Lake, I was under his guidance. But then at one point, 76, Mr. Long told me I had to make a decision at 12 years old, whether you want to play football or whether you want to do track. So at that's the year Somerset was taking the youth team away. So I just chose football.
You couldn't turn down the trip.
I'm good. I'm good with my boys. I'm good with my boys. You know what I mean? And you know, that it was too young to ask me at that time to make a decision. And looking back at it, looking back, I thought it was too young. If a couple of years down the road, 15, 16, make your decision, fine. And I had to do that when I was 15, playing in the youth squad football. And when Bob Jones was the cricket coach, so he wanted me to do cricket and football. But at the end of the day, I just said, I'll just concentrate on the football because cricket was going away as well. And then the football was also going away to a tournament. So I just chose football.
Did you ever do any extras, as far as your own personal development? Obviously, you go to train and then, the technical staff or the coaching staff are putting you through your paces. But, when you're on your own, did you ever do any extras?
Of course. That was what we learned from George Brangman. My memory takes me back to right after 24th of May. You used to see George Brangman running on the road. So one of the things he said, because I was always a guy who asked a lot of questions. One of the things he said was, you have to be fit before preseason. Why wait until preseason to get fit? That's how a lot of injuries occur. So that's why he used to start training the end of May, and by the time, and Somerset's preseason used to start like the end of June. So by the time you get into preseason, you're already fit. And at the end, and that's where it started for me. Had minimal injuries, did a lot of extras. If I played on a Sunday, on the Monday, I'm doing just a little light jog, like down to, that's when I was staying in Somerset. A light jog down to White Hill and back and stuff like that. I'm always doing extras. Learn from Courage Bumblebell about running around Somerset Cricket Club with a bus tire and a rope around your neck, around your waist, and you're running around the field dragging that. You know what I mean? That was good for your stamina and your strength. We had those big steps up Somerset. So days off, some of the times, you would work on those steps and stuff like that. So I was, in those days, you always saw players doing extra. So if you knew that your home chilling out or cooling out, your opponents out there working hard. So it was always about doing the extra work to make sure. And I was just telling my daughter this yesterday, if I missed a penalty today, I'm going down Somerset the next day and get some balls and put a ball in between the posts, both posts, and you're shooting to get the ball as close to the post as you can. So it's always about doing your extras. I was good, very good in the air. Always throwing the balls up and try to get as high as I can, heading the ball down and heading the ball in certain areas. So always doing extra to make sure I stay ahead of my opponent.
It certainly paid off, man. When it came to those headers, the set pieces, we used to come forward. And the Eagles knew all about that.
That's one of them. And I was telling someone that's probably my most important header in my career. That was a game that I'll never forget right up to today. Eagles went ahead 1-0. Somerset came back 1-1, went ahead 2-1. Eagles came back 2-2, went ahead 3-2. And the last minute, I was just writing Stork something on Facebook yesterday about that. He said the whistle right before I scored the hat. I said, oh, I heard that score. But I knew at that time, like my cousin Jerry Ray of Chocolate, he was one-on-one. And I said, yeah, I'm staying up because we had a corner. The ball went back out. I said, I'm staying up. Can't lose this game against Eagles because they beat us in the first game at White Hill. And I stayed up. Chocolate beat his man, put an inviting crossover. And as you said, you put your big head on it, and the rest is history.
I remember that girl. It was a bullet.
And the rest is history.
But I think that went down and looks his guard.
The best header I ever scored though was against Streaker. And he, right up to today, I tease him about it at BA. Somerset playing against North Village in the FA semifinal. That's the same, the 1990 FA, 1990. Lance Braun took a free kick, came together, he said, hey, big head, I'm shooting the ball across the box. Okay, get your big head on the ball. So said, so done. This was the 18-yard, the edge of the 18. Land struck this ball. I headed the ball from the edge of the 18, and Streaker didn't see that ball until he picked it out of the net. Like it was so unbelievable. I ran on a lap like Bum LaBelle did back in the day.
I'm glad you mentioned that because when you say he used to run around with the tire,
Yes.
Pulling the tire, I say, well, that's how he got so quick.
Bum LaBelle, strong.
Because he just run at you.
Run. I mean,
you didn't have to defend him.
I remember the first. He went to hotels and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, man, the guy was so strong. Man. He was so strong and unbelievable. And Bumble used to get stronger as the game went on, and that's what it's about. You don't get weaker, you get stronger as the game went on. And yeah, I scored that goal. I went on a lap of honor just like Bumble, and unbelievable. But yeah, Bumble showed us a lot. You know what I mean? when it came to being fit, very really injured, and that's important. I never had talked about having a pulled hamstring or a pulled groin or something like that until later in my career, you know what I mean? But my golden years, never injured, you know what I mean? Always fit and ready to represent Somerset or represent Bermuda.
And back then, the referees were more lenient. You do that today, when you finish, he's gonna have a yellow card for you, right?
Oh no, the referee, no, we had some, and I used to call them crazy. We had some crazy referees, like who didn't take no nonsense, like Pee-wee Cruckle, McNeil Smith, Charlie Marshall, Rex Osborne, David O'Leary. We had so Aston Curtis.
I was waiting for that.
We had so Bento. I remember a little short Bento. Those referees, you had to respect them. If you didn't, there were consequences. You know what I mean? And that's how it was. I remember the battles between my brother-in-law Danny Seymour with Crockle. I remember the battles with Horton with Crockle and stuff like that. Crockle never stood down. You know what I mean? He was my boss in the prison, and on the field we used to be at it. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, you had to respect. Those guys demanded respect. Guys who were in the middle. You didn't respect them, there are consequences.
No, it's pushing on a bit. We can go on about your career. I mean, you've just done so much, and it's so much wonderful stories I know you've got. But I don't want to miss the coaching aspect because not only did you enjoy success or savor success as a player, but then you make this transition to coaching, and you've achieved so much.
Well, in Bermuda, I've achieved everything as a coach. And people ask me why. Guy just asked me why yesterday. I think that's this morning. Because somebody took the time out for me and that person was Dwayne Tricks Richardson, took out the time to train us, showed us the benefits of being fit, working on the tricks, tricks in the bantams, 12 years old, you're doing 100 push-ups a session, sit-ups, running, unbelievable. So I took a part of Tricks' teachings into my coaching. So by the time I was Joseph was coaching mini minors or the minor team in Somerset. So at 17, I started to be his assistant at Somerset. So giving back to the younger boys coming through, guys like Richard Scott, the White Bearston, Carl Robertson, these guys, Sean Roberts. So that's where I started to get interest in coaching. When I basically finished playing, the first team I ever coached was actually a women's team. At that time, they were called Telecom. People with Leslie Cherry, Arlene Wilkinson, Claudette Bearston. We were undefeated for 3 years. And Once I finished coaching them, I had the opportunity to apply for the job in Somerset. That's when Somerset went down, I think, the first time. And I didn't get the job. Horton got the job. And that's when I went to Wolves. And that was a baptism for me because my first male senior coaching job. Wolves were then in the second division. They had a lot of promising young players, so that was a perfect job for me to develop myself and also to develop them. Players like VJ, who you see coaching now, I say, you guys are making me feel ill. You guys are 40. I remember you guys coaching you guys at 16. VJ, Jared Peniston, Torrey Davis, Joey Rigo, Rio Peniston, Corey Sharif, Nathan Webb, and we had a 15-year-old John Barry Newsom who physically was too physical to play junior football. So we got permission from the BFA to play John Barry at 15 in the second division for Wolves. And the first year at Wolves was a good year. We actually came third in my first year. Actually got to the FA Cup final in my first year at Wolves with a young team before losing to Boulevard 3-2 after extra time. The second year, won everything in the second division. Won the league. We won the knockout shield, and then we came to the first division. One of the best signings, most important signings for me coming up to the first division was Ellington Weldon. I was looking for somebody who was mature, a goal scorer, and somebody to impart their influence on the team. And he was the perfect fit for Wolves at that time. So we drafted in Ellington and Leonard Hippolyte, two experienced guys coming from the first division to ensure that the most important thing for that year was to stay in the first division. And we ended up coming fourth in our first season, done really well. The third season, we actually got to the finals of the Martinmere for the first time. They had never been to the finals in their life. Ended up losing to Dendytown 2-0 at St. David's. The fourth year, before I say that, I'll now forget, we beat Village in the semifinal that year. Going down to 9 men. You know what I mean? So the team had a lot of fight and a lot of determination to get the job done. We went down to 9 men and still beat a team that consisted of my mate Kenny, because Kenny had to bring himself on. At the end of the day, we ended up winning. The fourth year, got to the Martinmere final again. And this time, the game was played at Somerset, and we ended up winning. Wolves ended up winning their first trophy in their history in the senior level. Shakai Crocker, God bless his soul, ended up scoring the goal that beat Devonshire Colts, and ironically, it was in Somerset.
Your first trophy.
First trophy as a coach.
Martinmere
trophy. And the first trophy for Wolves at the senior level. The next season, at Christmas, we were in second place. Got to the Dudley finals again against PHC. It was two legs. We beat PHC 3-1 in the first game at Rangers. And then in St. George's, the second leg, we beat PHC 4-0. So it was a 7-1 aggregate win. They won the Dudley Eves. So 2 trophies they had never won before. And then in the second half, they stopped training. They got satisfied that they were the champions of the Dudley Eve at Christmas. Not forgetting that you got a second half of the season to go. So they, from going second place at Christmas to get relegated at the end of the season, that's a lesson for any team, right? So if you don't they put all the work in, and the team that I had should have been dominating for next couple of years from Nakia Smith, God bless his soul, Beaver Ray, Corey Sharif, Nathan Webb, Anthony Thomas. We had Torrey Davis, VJ, Jared. We had a team that, like I said, should have dominated a couple of years after that, but no, they stopped putting the work.
Wow. And then you went to Devonshire Cougars.
So went back to Somerset.
Okay.
I went back to Somerset in 2003. Somerset hadn't won a trophy for like 10 years. Brian Iris and myself, we, like I said, we weren't a professional team, but we had a professional mindset, how we treated the players, what we did, stuff in our preparations. And we ended up winning the Dudley Youth and the Friendship trophies. So we won 2 trophies after they hadn't won anything for 10 years. In 2011, or 2010, I finished up at Somerset because my daughter was on the way. I didn't want to be coaching at Somerset and having to deal with a little newborn in Pembroke. So actually I was going to take off. But Cougars came knocking. I'll never forget, I was mowing my grass one day in Pembroke, and D'Amico, because his relatives used to stay in the area, D'Amico stopped me and said, can you consider coming coach Devonshire Cougars? We want to win the Triple Crown. And I said, can you guys handle me? So at the end of the day, we started laughing or whatever, but got a call from the Cougars management. So it worked out a deal and stuff like that. And I would say the first year at Cougars wasn't easy because my mentality and their mentality was completely different. So I had to get to know them and they had to get to know me, what I expected and stuff like that. The second year, it didn't start well either. I remember sitting on the bench and Cougars people were calling for my head early in the season. And it clicked one game, it clicked. We were playing Wolves at Devonshire Rec. Wolves had us 2-0. And the fans were calling for my head. And we came back. We didn't win the game, but we didn't lose the game. And we didn't lose another game after that. Like we went from strength to strength. I remember playing in Somerset. Somerset had us 2-0 in Somerset halftime. I gave the players some French words or whatever, blah, blah, blah. We ended up going out there and beating Somerset 3-2. And I knew from there that, these guys are ready and on a path. And by the time we got to the FA Cup final, and ironically it was against Somerset again, to win the triple. So the week before that, we played at Rangers, got the league title, got the trophy, and that whole week, we trained 6 days a week. So from the Monday, after the Rangers game, Arboretum, anybody missing, don't think about showing up on the Sunday. So we trained from the Monday to the Saturday. Saturday had team meeting, food, camaraderie, talking about the final. And by the time we got to that final, and that morning of the final, I knew that my old club was in trouble because my boys at Devonshire Rock were ready at that time. And so done, I think it was halftime. But the full score was 3-0 and halftime was 3-0. So I knew that that was it.
So and then of course the friendship you would have.
Yeah, we won the friendship against Dandytown on penalties. And like I said, the FA was 3-0 at the National Stadium.
Wow, that's a huge achievement and a rare one at that. And obviously that's a feat that's synonymous with, your club, Somerset.
Yes, yeah.
So
yeah, that was.
You did it in different colors.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely have to be thankful for that, like guys like Dago who taught me the culture of Devonshire Rec. The culture of Devonshire Rec is definitely not the same as the culture in Somerset. So it's important for Dago and Earl Wilder to basically teach me about the Devonshire Rec culture. A couple of times Dago used to come over my house. He said, hey, you know, relax, you're too hard on the guys and blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, it was about me getting to know them and them getting to know me. So Dago was a big part of my success as being the coach of the Triple Crown champion, Dago and Earl Wilder. Can't thank them, you know.
I remember Dago playing in that final, I believe it was 79, so
79.
won the FA Cup 4-1, and
Yeah.
you know, Danny Rogers and Dago were in that.
Yeah, they had a talented
I
team.
believe Tuba was in that team.
Tuba was there. Tuba was there.
That was he came Somerset as well.
Donnie Hill.
Yeah, Donnie Hill. That's right, Donnie Hill.
What's his name?
Yeah,
The winger.
it was Coach Trott's team.
Coach Trott. The winger. Who was the winger? Rashid. What do you call him? Yeah, Mitchell Alice was also in that team. So yeah, Andre Emery was in that team. Cougars had a very Arnold West was the goalkeeper. You know what I mean? So they had quality too, but
Yeah,
Trojans just jumped on them in that final.
Arnold West was Bermuda's #1
Yeah, he was.
time.
He was, well, when I first went with the national team to Mexico, he was there. Him and Bully Beef. And Randy Durrell was the third goalkeeper.
And then Andre Emery came up.
Andre came to Somerset for a season. But he had a lot of back injuries at that time, back issues. So really, we didn't really see his full talent when he came to Somerset.
I got to wrap it up a bit. I got to wrap it up shortly, but it's one burning question I have. It goes back to your playing days. I overlooked it. At that time, there were a lot of incoming tours, and Somerset had the privilege of playing against some of these touring teams. Did you ever get that opportunity?
Oh, we played against Tottenham, Manchester United. Every year, like around this time, Easter, or they had a break like October, November, or whatever, they'll send an English team. So we've played against Oxford, we've played against teams from Moscow, played against Canadian teams, we played against MLS team. It wasn't MLS then, it was NASL teams. One of the best foreign teams I played against was a team from Russia, Moscow Lokomotiv. Like they were on, the movement of those players was absolutely unbelievable. And then the famous game against Aston Villa, where the reporter reported something that I said that I didn't, that old Mark Peter Weir out of the game. Aston Villa ended up beating us 12-0. We also played against Arsenal. Clive Allen and these guys like that. Arsenal beat us 1-0 at Somerset. My center-back partner, JSF, scored an earned goal late in the game. So we were competing against Premier Division teams. Like I said, Manchester, I actually scored against United, scored a penalty against United. And United beat us 4-1. Tottenham beat us 4-1. So at that time, the league champions and stuff like that would play against touring teams that come in. So we were afforded the opportunity to have a play against a lot of foreign teams. Played against Jamaica team, Jamaica Defense Force, Mexico. Mexico came here, were beating up everybody. And then they came to Somerset, and we actually beat Mexico 3-1 in Somerset. So we, at that time, the tours that were coming in were beneficial to not just the players, but the spectators, playing against guys like Glenn Hoddle and Chris Waddle and Brian Robson, and the list goes on. Peter Reid, you know what I mean? Mark Walters, a good winger for Aston Villa. So yeah, I've seen it. I almost seen it all as a player playing in Bermuda. You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, I have no regrets. It's been a pleasure. Now looking to mentor a lot of young coaches now because I'm not going to be around forever. So at the end of the day, one of the things that the coaches have to realize and recognize is coaching is a commit and dedication. And to me, it's good that I have a family behind me to support. It would be difficult if my wife didn't recognize what I do and how I do it. So everything goes out to my wife, to my daughter, for having the patience. Sometimes I used to come in disagreeable because I'm losing and stuff like that, but they have seen it all. They have seen the good times, they have seen the bad times, but mostly good times in my coaching career. Yeah, I'm in debt to them for the rest of my life for taking the time to be patient with me. Like I said, at my worst, but yeah, wouldn't change that for the world.
Well, I just want to congratulate you on success, all the success you've enjoyed both as a player and a coach. And it's wonderful to see you now giving back. I mean, you're involved in the Coaching Association. I believe you're the president.
Yeah.
And some other groups out there that, are helping to develop the next generation and certainly get them off on good footing. So it's good to see you putting back into the
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I also co-founded Bermuda's Brazilian Football School with my old teammate Lou Simmons, and we've been together since 2008. We've always taken boys and girls overseas to different cultures, and this week with the traveling, I'm not going with them, but Coach Curley, Coach Torrey Davis will be, and Dr. Alcia Lugo will be taking a contingent to Spain, to Madrid, Spain for the next 10 days. So that's going to be a good experience for them. When they come back, they have to write the reports in to see what they've learned and stuff like that. So it's always learning. Like I tell coaches today, you always learning. I've been coaching for over 40 plus years, and I'm still learning, and I still want to learn. So that's what it's all about.
Any other thing? Any advice you would like to give? Anyone out there? Any up and coming player? Any coach? I mean, you've given some wonderful advice. Anything else?
Yeah, up and coming players is important to put the work in. One of the things that happens, we all want to be a professional football player. It's two things that, because I also have a program overseas where we have send boys to school and for education. One of the things my partner, Tony Robinson, talks about, Turner is the father of Anthony Robinson, he plays for Fulham. It's two things. A player wants to be a professional player, but you have to get an education, right? So it's a need, or it's a want, and a must. You must get an education because 0.12% make it as a professional football player. So as we say, it's easier to get an education than it is to become a professional football player. To the players, you have to put the work in. There's no shortcuts. You have to do your extra work. Coaches is about dedication and commitment and doing your research and stuff like that. There's no shortcuts as a player or as a coach. So I recommend to everybody, if you're going to do it for the love. Don't do it just for the sake of money or whatever. Do it for the love. And you'll find out you'll go further if you're doing something for love than it is for just money. So I also wish the national team well tonight, in the match. But you get out what you put in. If you put bad stuff in your gas tank, it's going to break down. And that's just like the human body and the human mind. So put the work in and reap the benefits at the end.
Great advice indeed, Darius. Great advice indeed, giving us the blueprint, our youngsters, the blueprint for success. Thanks again, man. I just want to congratulate you on, all your successes.
Thank you.
And I wish you the best in your future endeavors.
Thank you. In my retirement, you mean?
Your retirement? No, you can't retire. You can't walk.
3 years. I'll be 65. 3 years.
Okay, we'll see. God willing, we'll see.
Or really, yeah.
We'll see. We'll see.
it.
Well, folks, that's all the time we have for today. I just want to thank each and everyone for joining. And I look forward to seeing you again real soon, right here on Up Close with yours truly, Colin Thompson.